Oh, good.
All right, so I will then introduce our speaker, Jennifer. We are so grateful to have Jennifer Lynn Robinson here with us today. She is the CEO of Purposeful Networking. She is an expert in strategic networking, communications, public speaking, and workplace relations. She does motivational speaking centered on themes of storytelling and resilience. She gave a TED Talk on change and disruption in June 2020 and is also a media contributor. I love some of these awards. She was top small business influencer in 2018, one of 45 Philly business influencers to follow on Twitter. So if you're on Twitter, definitely follow her. And she was named Best Networker in 2018. So definitely has a lot to share and a lot for us to learn from her. And for people who are on the events committee or steering committee, you know that one of WHF-PA's core goals is to bring women together, to have networking and professional development activities. And something that we've really struggled with in the pandemic is what that can look like, what that should look like, and what that really means at this time. So we're grateful to have Jennifer here to give us some insights and share. Hopefully I know we'll all learn something from her talk. So thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm excited to meet all of you and talk to you a little bit about how we can make this time better and build better relationships and keep up all our networking. A little bit about me. I know you just heard kind of the official bio, but just to give a point of reference of where I come from and why this is important to me. Angela mentioned my TED Talk, my TEDx talk, and I did do that during the pandemic. So to go back further, I was involved in a near-death accident in 2008. At the time, I was a litigator, and I had to give up my career because of very serious injuries and a traumatic brain injury. And I ended up starting a career as an entrepreneur, starting a speaking and consulting business. So my whole network at that point was in the legal community. I had a great network, but it was all lawyers and people that were involved in the legal community. And I saw how tough it was when you don't have a diverse network and you're trying to do something else and pivot, which I'm sure some of you at least have experienced. So I've been able to, over the last now 7 years or so, grow my business primarily through networking. That was how I found my first clients. That's how I get my speaking engagements. That's how I get my media that I've been able to do or publishing. It's all through networking. I'm sure a lot of you have heard stats already about, as far as job hunting, 85% or so of jobs are through a connection, warm introduction. So that network becomes so important. For me, it's really personal because, I've had to kind of start from scratch midway through my career. And, just a little bit about the TEDx, I'd been trying to do that for 5 years and rejected. It was a big goal of mine to tell my story. And finally, I was supposed to fly to give the TEDx talk the week the country shut down in March. So I had a decision to make. They presented me with options to wait a year and go do it in person, or to do it in an empty studio in Philly during the pandemic with no stage, no audience, no feedback. And that's what I did because, I worked on it for 4 months. I was in the zone, and I really thought it was important to get the message out of how you overcome upheaval and change and move on and find happiness and contentness after that. And we can all relate to that, I'm sure, in some way. So that's kind of the point I come to from this. And networking, I'm just one of those crazy people that love networking. I'm very passionate about it. It's been very hard for me during this pandemic to not, see people in person and go to all my events and have the audience. And so I'm just happy to have any opportunity to meet some new people and interact with all of you. So thank you for being here. And I'm going to provide some substantive tips for takeaways, but I also want to make this a little fun and interactive, so it's not just another Zoom meeting. So I would love to do a couple icebreakers. And the one I'd like to start with, and I think we don't have that many people on the call, so let's see how we can do this. If you want to, once you hear the question, take yourself off mute and tell me your answer, that's great. If some of you would prefer to put your answer in the chat box, I can go into that and read a few answers. And we don't have to go through all of them, but I'd love to hear from a few of you, and we'll do another icebreaker a little later in the meeting. So my first icebreaker is, what is the craziest thing that you've purchased either on Amazon or online during the pandemic? And I will start. I purchased a stuffed sloth, a stuffed lavender sloth that actually you put in the microwave and it takes lavender oil to make you more calm. So that is the most random and crazy thing that I purchased so far during the pandemic. So I'd love to hear from some of you.
I don't have anything specific except I keep buying my puppy new toys, and he's only one dog. He has many toys. I should really stop. So maybe this is me saying I'm coming out.
The first step's admitting you have a problem, right?
I'm in the same boat except with dog treats. So I have just started subscribing to all these different themed dog treat boxes that keep coming, and I'm just about to place my Halloween/Thanksgiving order. So
I love it.
Something similar too.
Well, I'm a rescue mom. I have 2 rescue dogs myself, so I totally relate to what you guys are saying. Anyone else?
I bought a floppy fish for a cat, so I'm kind of in the same boat, except it's a cat, and it's a weird fish that flops around the floor.
I love it.
I went the entire extreme and decided to add a whole addition to the back of my house for me to work in when I have to work from home. So I'm designing and building a sunroom on the back of my house so I can not be in this little cramped room that I took from my daughter when she went away to school.
Are you doing that yourself, or you have people helping you?
No, I'll hire.
Oh, okay, because some people are handy like that.
No.
That's great. Wonderful. Okay, yeah. So I'm really big on icebreakers. I think one of the things that makes successful networking when you're in person, and I don't think that changes online, is that you're looking to have human connection with people. And we kind of all default to that, where do you work? What do you do? But I think it's a lot more meaningful, even if it's a fun question like the one I just asked. It doesn't have to be a serious business question. Just what can you do to get to know people better? And that way also, when you can distinguish yourself later by following up with somebody, you can reference something that's more personal that you got to know about them. So I love doing icebreakers. I think, when we do go back to in-person networking, or as you have virtual meetings and one-on-ones during this time, just keep that in mind. It can be something as simple as, how has your day been? It doesn't have to be complicated, but just try to ask people something that's personal. Even if it's a business call, like don't get right into the business, and make sure that you're asking, how they're doing. So the 2 topics I really want to cover today from a substantive standpoint are, from networking, I think the 2 biggest things right now are staying connected and staying visible. And so I'll start with staying connected. Here are some tips that I have for staying connected during this crazy time. So probably a lot of you are already doing this, kind of the one-on-ones. And, that's in some sense, I'm sure, easier to do in person, to set up meetings with somebody, have the coffee chats and the breakfast and the follow-up lunch and all that good stuff. And, even though some of us are getting a little bit back in person events, most of us are not doing much of that or any of that. So I think it's still important to try your best, at least during the Monday to Friday, to put one virtual one-on-one on your calendar every day. And that can be like a 15-minute, check in with somebody, and it could be a new person, or it could be reconnecting with somebody in your network. So really think about that. I also think that what's good about this time, we're always looking at what are we not being able to do during this time, but I think what's good and positive from a networking standpoint is that there's a lot of people that are tough to get in touch with for those meetings. Either, they travel a lot, or they have other family commitments, or maybe they're high up in a company and, they just don't have time to meet with everyone. So even though people are on meetings, most of the day, all day, there is a sense that people have more time. They don't have to travel. They're not maybe going to conferences or traveling for work. They might be more willing to have that 15-minute one-on-one to give advice, or, hear you talk about something that you might need advice on. So think about also a wish list. I think sometimes we think people are out of the realm of those that can connect with us, oh, they're too important to meet with me, or they wouldn't take the time, or, this is somebody that, is too busy. And I think this is a great time to just reach out to those people, have a small wish list, and that can be something that's changes. You don't have to make a wish list and stick with it, but who are the top 5 people, if you could talk to anybody and connect with them either virtually or in person, who would those people be? And see, through your LinkedIn or people, is there a way that you can connect with them, or can you reach out to them directly? I love to ask things, because the worst thing is, people will just say no, and you don't know unless you try. And I can't tell you how many opportunities have come from just asking, people that I don't know for advice, or, opportunities to present themselves. So think about the one-on-ones you can do to reconnect, make new contacts, and also the wish list of people, and try to get something consistent on your calendar once a day during the work week. I think that can be really helpful right now. Also, are there ways that you can curate group networking? This is a great example, this group that you guys have that's industry specific, but what else can you do? I'll give you an example. One of my friends, really more of like a networking colleague, not a close friend, reached out to me last week and said, I've been thinking about putting together just a group of like a few good people to get together and socially distance network. Like we'll bring our own chairs, BYO chair, BYO lunch, just think of like 3 or 5 people each and get together. And if you're not comfortable with that, that's something you can do in a virtual space as well. But literally just getting some people together so that we can discuss, our goals or advice we need, people we need to meet, just how are we doing, make connections. So that's something that you can do. And if you can be a resource to people, that also is great for networking. That helps you expand your network, and people will look to you as somebody that's a great connector because you're helping bring other people together. But, you can also do that in more of a fun space. So, I mean, if there's hobbies or interests that some of you have, maybe into, there's virtual book clubs. I mean, pretty much at this point, now that we're like 8 months in, there's a virtual, setting for everything. But if you can be the one that's curating events, bringing people together, even in a virtual space, that's something that will really be valued from a networking perspective. I have a friend who works for Insperity. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that company. They do kind of small to mid-size HR outsourcing. And they have been doing these fun, like they had something, I went away last month and I unfortunately missed it, but this was the most fun one I think I heard. They actually had a select number of people, it was a small number of people they invited. They delivered through DoorDash or Caviar, one of those services, tacos to everyone's house. And then everybody sat together on a virtual setting and did virtual networking and ate their tacos. And I'm like, that's super fun. So, I mean, there are creative things that you can do to either bring, your work colleagues together, people that have interests. Just think about those kinds of things that you can do to curate your own networking events instead of waiting for those opportunities to come to you the way they might have, before we were in this pandemic situation. I'm also a big believer in just actual mail. And I think right now it's probably more important than ever because a lot of people are still remaining fairly homebound. So I like to send cards to people, whether it's thank you notes for networking or just, hey, how are you doing? I think that can go a long way. I mean, think about when you go to the mailbox every day. I know, for the few months in the spring where we were truly homebound, that was like the big outing to get the mail, oh my gosh, what came in the mail? And usually it's, a bunch of junk mail and bills, and especially this time of year, it's a lot of stuff. Politicians, be to just open your mailbox and have like a nice card or note from a girlfriend or a networking contact. 1 week in the spring, I just picked 10 girlfriends out of my network and I just sent everybody kind of inspirational cards because I thought everybody could use it. And, I think doing things like that can go a long way. So even though we're in such a kind of technologically savvy and digital space where everything's online, it really can go a long way to distinguish yourself to actually send mail to people, happy mail, as I call it. I think I mentioned early on when we were introducing ourselves and everything, the no agenda check-in, asking those questions, and it can be as simple as how are you doing? But I think during this time especially, when people think about, I met somebody, or maybe you met somebody pre-pandemic and now you're looking for ways to continue that relationships, which becomes very hard in this space because you're not interacting with them or maybe not seeing them out and about at events. How do you start to keep that relationship on track? what reason would you reach out to people? A lot of times people struggle with networking because they think about, why would I get in touch with them? Or what do I have to offer? What would be the reason I reach out? And like I said before, it really doesn't have to be for any reason except to check in on people, especially now. I don't know about you, but I think all of us probably, are having good and bad days at this point. There are days that we're fine and we're productive and, we're happy and healthy. And then other days where, I haven't showered and I'm sitting on the couch talking full conversations to my dogs, watching Bravo reruns, eating chocolate for breakfast, all of it. So I think we've all gone through stuff like that. And, everybody's going through things in their own way. So really reaching out to people and just asking how they're doing. How are you managing? Is there anything I can help with? How's this week been for you? I think that can really go a long way. So just think about doing those check-ins with people without an agenda, without a business purpose. And that can be a reason to help you build relationships right now with people. I think from a virtual standpoint, especially when we talk about access and cost, that can be a big factor in networking. And one thing I've seen be a positive is that there's a lot of organizations and conferences, because they've had to move virtual, they either are offering free programming or reduced price programming. So if there's organizations that you've been thinking about checking out, pre-pandemic, look at what they're offering right now, because a lot of them are either offering all their programming free or maybe attending 1 or 2 events at no cost. A lot of conferences that maybe were, $300 are now being offered for $20, So, look at those opportunities and always ask. Like I said, even pre-pandemic, sometimes there were conferences that I really wanted to be at because I thought, these are people I need to meet. These are companies that would potentially hire me, but I really can't afford as a sole business owner to go to them. I would always ask if there's either, a reduced price ticket, or can I volunteer? Can I speak pro bono in exchange for a ticket? So there's a lot of things you can do. If you're looking at an organization and you don't see that they're offering stuff to non-members, you can always ask. You can say, I'm thinking about checking out or joining this organization. Could I attend your next get together online complimentary, and check it out and see if it makes sense for me. So look at all those things, like even things that might not have made sense from a financial standpoint or time standpoint before the pandemic, because this is a great opportunity to check those out and kind of diversify what you're doing. And along those lines, like I said, this group that you guys have is great. And I said at the beginning, for me, before I started my business, my whole network was in the legal community when I was still a practicing lawyer. And I think it's so important to diversify your network, because, you never know what's going to happen in your life. And you also just don't know when somebody's going to be able to make an introduction or an opportunity may present itself. So, similar to what I would give as advice if we were meeting in person or you're networking in person, look at ways that you can foster non-industry specific networking right now. And that goes back to some of the things I mentioned. Do you have a hobby? Is there something that your college alumni are doing, because that brings together people that are in different fields. Maybe it's people you went to camp with that are doing a trivia night online. I've seen all kinds of creative stuff go on, but just think about, those kinds of non-industry specific or even non-business related groups. A few of you mentioned, dogs or cats, and, I'm an animal person myself. So, I sit on a board of an animal rescue. So, there's virtual meetings with people that share common ground of an interest that you have. And I'm sure some of you have other interests that you could also pursue like that. Virtual volunteering is another great thing where you can come together with people and network. And there's lots of opportunities for that right now as well. So that's another way to network. Any questions about any of that? No questions. Okay. All right. So moving on, we will do our second icebreaker. And so this one is just, and I think this is going to be a great icebreaker for you guys to ask people as you do those one-on-ones and you do the check-ins with everybody. And that's just, tell me about a highlight of the week for you. What has been a highlight in the last week? And the reason I'm framing it like that is because, a lot of times you'll talk to people now and it's all about what we're missing. We had to cancel our vacation, or we couldn't attend my son's graduation, or he didn't have a graduation. or, it's just so hard right now, my business is down, or I wasn't able to, see my father, or whatever it might be. So instead of focusing on all the I can or I'm not, or we had to cancel, approach it from the positive and ask people what a highlight of their week has been. So I'd love to hear from a few of you about what the highlight of the last week has been.
Yeah, so for me, I can certainly say, balancing work with partial remote learning for our daughter can be trying. But I try to think about the fact that if it weren't for that opportunity, I wouldn't get to see these amazing moments where things click and she gets it. And it's
Yeah.
really, really cool. I mean, if she were in a classroom, I would never get to see that experience. So for me, that's something that I definitely enjoy seeing, look forward to, and I think I'll hold on to for a long time.
That's great. Thanks. Anyone else want to share?
Yeah, this is Marilyn with Terracon. Highlight of this week, this is going to sound so minor for most of, well, for all of you. I'm just going to be honest, it's for all of you. So I have celiac disease and I can't eat gluten. So basically, if it tastes good, I can't have it. The other day, I found cupcakes that were pumpkin flavored, and I got super excited, and because I haven't had that since I've been diagnosed. And I'll tell you, I ate all of it. I'm mad at myself because I have no more to eat. But it was the best thing I've ever eaten this week in a long time. And I ate every single crumb, and I was not ashamed.
Oh, you shouldn't be. That's great.
I wasn't going to share either. So
as an aside, I have a friend that runs a local bakery, which has actually gone national now, called Flakely, Flakely, Flakely. And she specializes in celiac, gluten-free, and everything's very tasty. So check her out. Maybe that'll be helpful to get more treatment.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, because that was too good. And now I'm on a mission to get pumpkin roll that's gluten-free because I haven't had that since my diagnosis, and I used to love it.
Well, that is a highlight.
Yeah, little things.
Maybe just one more person want to share?
Well, just driving through the Western Pennsylvania countryside, back from a short vacation. That was inspirational. It's beautiful out there with the changing leaves.
Oh yeah, it's a great time of year for that. And I see somebody actually put something in the comments. The garbage truck took my old rusted wheelbarrow that I finally put out to the trash. Well, that is exciting. It's those small changes, right? I totally get it. So I'll share mine. My favorite brand is Lily Pulitzer. Is anyone familiar with Lily Pulitzer? It's a kind of women's resort brand. And I'm obsessed with it. It's a very happy brand. They do a lot of philanthropy, and I'm in Lily groups on Facebook. Normally when it's not a pandemic, we get together, talking about sharing common ground. We have a Lily and Philly group of all these women that get together, and it's become like a really wonderful community of women that all share a love for Lily Pulitzer. So Mainline Today magazine, which is a local magazine here, if you're not familiar, they do a Power Women issue. And this year, the keynote was the CEO of the company, Lily Pulitzer, and they actually asked me to ask her some questions. So the whole event went virtual, and I got to ask the Lily Pulitzer CEO some questions. And it was just like a dream come true for me. So that was my highlight of the week. I got to do that a few days ago. Yeah, all right. Well, so we'll move on, and I want to talk about staying visible, which I think can also be very challenging during this time. So, you can think about starting your own groups. Maybe some of you have already done that, whatever forum that you're comfortable with. So that could be on LinkedIn, that could be on Facebook, something, again, that could be industry specific. It could be related to an interest that you have. It could be women, it could be alumni. Start your own group. I actually started a group at the beginning of the pandemic called Social Survival Guide on Facebook. Initially, it was limited to just kind of like happy news and virtual events. And now I've kind of added on some socially distanced, safe in-person events as well. So feel free to check out my group. I think we're up to almost 2,400 people in it, and people post all kinds of fun things. Like, to give an example, I just posted something coming up called the Festival of Trees. You know, a lot of us are kind of already thinking it's going to be not as fun during the holidays because maybe we won't see the same family or as much family or maybe any family. So this is a drive-in. I don't know how many of you are near Oaks, Pennsylvania, the Greater Oaks Convention Center, which is about 40 minutes from my house. I'm in Ballackenwood. And essentially you can buy a ticket and drive through 200 differently lit Christmas trees. I'm Jewish, but my husband's not. And, you know, we celebrate both. And whether I celebrate Christmas or not, I just thought what a fun, safe activity that you can drive and see all these trees. So I'm just giving one example, but, you know, check out the group. Lots of fun things in it, and think about ways that you can bring that to other people, you know, whether it's posting something that might be positive, an event that people can do that's safe, either virtual or in person, socially distanced, something that you can bring to people. Again, that's being a resource. So start your own group. Look at ways that you can be a thought leader. So what do I mean by that? You know, can you publish something that's specific to an expertise that you have? And I think if you've been thinking about doing that and you haven't really done it, or maybe you've only done it for industry publications, the best way to do that would be first on LinkedIn. You have a platform on LinkedIn, if you haven't used it before, some of you, where you can publish on the LinkedIn platform. What's great about that is, you know, as far as improving your LinkedIn profile, it lives in your profile forever. So if somebody's going to your profile or connecting with you, one of the first things they'll see in your profile is all of the LinkedIn publications that you've done on different topics. Sometimes you'll get lucky and what you write on LinkedIn will also get featured by LinkedIn or different groups on LinkedIn. So that can be a great way to have more visibility as well. So if you're thinking about writing an article, you can start with LinkedIn. You can also start a Medium account. If some of you are not familiar with that, you can open a free Medium account and you can publish on Medium. And they also have a bunch of different categories and they highlight different articles every day. And I think, you know, that's something that you can share as social media posts, which is also another way to stay visible, but also just the publications itself. I think, especially during this time, you know, maybe some of you that aren't getting out, maybe some of you that usually speak on panels or maybe do some in-person continuing education. This is a great way to stay visible is to do some publications. Also look at media opportunities. So there's a website that I love called Harrow. It stands for Help a Reporter Out. And you can subscribe for free. And basically when you subscribe for free, it'll come in your inbox in the morning and then in the afternoon. And it'll tell you about different things reporters are looking for. For example, you know, a reporter for New York Times is looking for somebody to talk about micro weddings during the pandemic. And then you can respond to their inquiries. Now, sometimes you respond to their inquiries and nothing happens. You never hear from them again and it just goes out in the internet abyss. Other times you get published. So, you know, through that, I've had the opportunity to get published in like the Chicago Tribune and a few other things. So if you're looking for opportunities like that, it's free and, you know, it takes nothing but time. Like you can just kind of peruse every day the things that come in through Harrow. And if anything's applicable or interesting to you, you can respond and just see if it goes somewhere. I would also encourage you, if you're looking for kind of more visibility and publicity, to just start pitching yourself to different local media yourself. I think a lot of people feel like they need a big, you know, PR company that's expensive or at least somebody helping them in that regard, or that they can't actually pitch themselves. I mean, I've been really successful in being able to pitch myself. And that's literally just going on a website of, you know, Fox 29 or ABC and going and finding either somebody that does the beat of the topic that you want to cover, or literally just sending in a pitch to, you know, when they show on the website, if you have an idea for a pitch or story, you know, send it to us here. And again, sometimes I never hear back and sometimes it's created amazing opportunities. So, you know, don't think that that's not something that you can do to gain yourself some visibility and publicity. Try to pitch yourself. And especially right now, anything that has to do with how you're managing the pandemic is something that's very timely. So always think about what will be timely for the media. I'll give an example. I had a friend, she's a photographer, and a lot of her event, photography and everything, of course, was canceled, bar mitzvahs and weddings and corporate events and all of that stuff. So she started this really cool project called This is Main Street, where she started doing socially distanced porch photos of people that were small business owners and doing short interviews with them about how they were managing during the pandemic or how they managed pivoting during the pandemic. So it was, just a great thing to, you can look it up on Facebook or her website. This is Main Street. And she's also gained a lot of media attention because that's something that's been very timely. So if there's something that you can think of that might work for you in that regard, pitch yourself and see how that works out. Also, if you're not doing it already, just looking for speaking opportunities. Like, Angela reached out to me and said, would I be willing to do this? And I said, yes, of course. And look for ways that you can diversify your network in that regard to speak to different audiences. There's so many places that need speakers right now. So, whether you can sit on a panel or be a moderator or drop into something as simple as like BNI, which is Business Network International, or Rotary Club, or, there's so many groups that are meeting that need speakers. So if that's something that you've thought about, I need to become a better speaker, or, I want to be able to have that more on my resume that I have done speaking, or I want to do more speaking. This is a great time to look for those opportunities online of speaking and being on panels. And gaining some visibility like that. Additionally, do some stuff yourself. So, I mean, if that's interviewing people on social media, you can do Instagram lives, Facebook lives. LinkedIn actually just created a brand new platform. So you can actually do interviews with people. And then that's a way to show some expertise, have something to post, create great resources for people, add value of topics that they're interested in hearing about. So you can create your own Facebook lives or other lives, and you can interview different people, business owners, people in your industry, people you admire, other moms, whatever it is, you can interview people, and that can be something that you can use to help their visibility and your visibility. And you can also, if you have expertise, think about taping short videos. It could be a 30-second video or 2-minute, 3-minute. I wouldn't encourage a very long video because, we all have a short attention span, especially now when we're all on these digital meetings like all day. But, you can tape a few things and then put it out there. I have a friend that does a video every morning of just kind of a good morning motivational video that she puts out to her network. And so think about what you would feel comfortable with, or if that's something that you would enjoy doing. And that's another way, that you can grow your network, gain visibility. The last thing I would say as far as being visible is just, and maybe some of you have been doing it during the pandemic, is just looking for ways to invest in yourself. So for example, I've done a couple free certifications and classes online, during this time. And I know a lot of people have done that as well. So investing in yourself, but then also not being afraid to put it out there as well. So, what do I mean by that? For example, I usually do speaking in person. And so during the pandemic, I did a certification to become a certified virtual presenter. Now, did I need a certification to become a virtual presenter? I mean, I could just virtually present, right? But it gives you that added credibility for somebody to look at me now and say, oh, she's a certified virtual presenter. So what are those things that you can do in your own field where you might be able to kind of give yourself that little edge? And then make sure that you kind of brag about it on social media. If you take a new class or you do a new certification, make sure you do a post about it and you say, I've completed this class, or I've completed this certification, or, I'm now a certified, whatever it is. I have a friend that totally did a career pivot and just decided to become an interior decorator, which was totally outside of her field. And, we would never know that she's now looking for interior design classes, clients, unless she put it out there. So also, that's a good reminder that whatever you're doing, a lot of times, especially as women, we don't put things out there as much as men, oh, that's bragging. Oh, nobody wants to hear that. But it's so important to tell people, what you're doing and also what you're looking for. So if you're doing those kinds of things, make sure that you're posting about them because, nobody is going to go looking for it. You need to start putting it out there so people, think of you for different opportunities. Any questions about any of that? No, no question.
Jennifer, I have a
Okay.
question for you
So,
about,
yeah.
okay, I just have a question. So kind of thinking about to find a good word, I guess like the payback of networking and thinking about, okay, we're going to do a lot of work and, you know, it seems like, you know, you have to take a lot of time or do all these things. And I think sometimes I feel like, you know, you don't think about networking until you need it, right? Until you do want to switch, you need a new job, or until you do like really need to call on those people. So how do you think about like putting in the time now and kind of doing some of these things now when the payback might not come until, you know, 5 years from now?
Yeah, I mean, there's an expression I use in a lot of my talks that I call networking karma, and I really believe in it. I mean, I think that anything you do will come back to you. I think the people that don't build successful networks are the ones that look at it as more of a tit for tat kind of situation. I don't know if some of you on the call are familiar with Adam Grant. He's a big guru of mine. He's a Wharton professor at the University of Pennsylvania, and he is a business professor, but also has a psychology background. He's had a couple bestseller books, and his first one, which is my favorite, is called Give and Take, and it's all about relationship styles and how we build relationships, and people are either givers, takers, or matchers. So when I mentioned the tit for tat, those are people in his book that would be called matchers, meaning that if you do something for them, they won't do something else for you until the favor is returned. So it's almost like a scorecard. You know, well, I made 2 introductions for her and she didn't make any for me, or I got her a client and she didn't get me any clients. But that's not the way relationships work. That's not the way successful networking works. So really, you know, you want to be in another category, of course, you know, you want to be a giver, right? And you can learn, even if you're not ready to read his book, just look him up. If you put in Adam Grant, Give and Take, you'll see, you know, some of his main points and also some interviews, and you'll pick up some wonderful, wonderful networking tips. But I think it's really important to do exactly what you were talking about, not wait until you need the network to build the network. Always be looking for those opportunities to connect with people without thinking about where it's going to go, what it's going to gain you. You know, if you are in a position to make introductions or to help people out, just do it, because it's a good thing to do. And I guarantee it'll come back to you. And don't be one of those people that keep the scorecard. You know, I mean, there's people that I've met, you know, where a year later, you know, they might reach out to me and say, hey, we met at this event, and, you know, my company is ready to bring in a speaker now, and I thought of you because I remember when we met, you said X, Y, and Z. And I'm thinking, I can't believe that a year later, you know, they would reach out to me now about this, but you just never know. So you should always continue the networking without regard for really what it's going to bring you, because it will bring you magical things in my mind. And I definitely recommend that book, or at least looking up Adam Grant. I wanted to just touch on quickly just the whole Zoom thing. And we talked about it a little at the beginning of this call. You know, I don't think I have to tell everybody this many months in, you know, we should be looking at things like having your camera at the right level and your lighting and the background noise and all that fun stuff. But it all becomes important, especially when you're doing virtual networking. If you're making a first impression, you know, for some of you, you might know some of this group very well, or you see them regularly, even if it's online. But if there's somebody that you're connecting with where it's a new person, all of those things become more important because they're looking at you in a little box and this is the only impression that they're getting. So do keep all of that in mind. But I think, as we were talking about before, the Zoom fatigue, that is a real thing. There's been a lot of articles about it. It's a real thing. Similar, you know, when I go give talks about networking in person, I really encourage people to not network if they're burned out. And that doesn't just apply to the Zoom setting. In person, you know, there are days where you're having a bad day. Things went wrong, you know, you're late for the networking event. You don't feel like networking. You felt obligated to go because you already paid for it. You know, you have a project that's an emergency that's due the next day. Those are not the times to network because you're not putting your best self forward. So the same way I would encourage you not to do that in person, think about that. Like, try your best. You know, if you're doing the networking, which is, you know, voluntary, it's not, you know, maybe the meetings you have for work all day, try to not stack them. Try to give yourself space, you know, try to see what works for your schedule. You know, earlier I said, try to schedule maybe one virtual one-on-one once a day from Monday to Friday. Maybe you were thinking like a lot. I would never do that. That's fine. You know, maybe it's one meeting a week. Maybe it's 2 meetings a week. Maybe it's 1 meeting every other week. Whatever works for you. I think it's about the consistency and continuing to kind of nurture the relationships you have and build new ones. But never network when you're feeling burned out. And it's even harder in the virtual setting because I think we're all more burned out than usual. But just know that, you know, you don't want to make that bad impression. So it's better to just wait for a time to give yourself space to be your best self. And that way you can really build relationships that are positive. So that's what I want to say about Zoom. And I guess just in closing, you know, before we open it up again, if there are other questions, I just wanted to remind everybody, just be kind. You know, I know it's cliche, but we're all dealing with so much. You know, if somebody's short with you, I mean, I've had, you know, I can't even tell you how many, you know, daily arguments I have with my husband because we're both working from the same space and it's stressful, right? And I know a lot of you are probably dealing with remote school and a lot more than we're dealing with just the two of us. But, you know, just keep in mind, like, people are dealing with so much and there's so much uncertainty. So just try your best to be kind. And, you know, just realize that everybody's going through something. And as far as productivity, as far as networking and just in general, you know, try to give yourself one thing. You know, I try to start the day with a list of maybe 3 things, but then there's the one thing, like, what's the one thing that I want to get done today? And some days, you know, that works great. And, you know, I feel productive at the end of the day. I get to cross my, you know, here's my one thing, I did it, or my 3 things. Some days none of it gets done, and that's okay. And just recognize that it's a tough space right now. But, you know, try to keep yourself on a schedule with your networking and with everything else, and have that consistency. And then the last thing I want to say is just, you know, and I was guilty of this early on too, is I think at the beginning, you know, in the spring, it was very easy to say, well, I'll just wait on that because, you know, this will all go back to normal. I'll wait on, you know, doing that or meeting that goal or, you know, writing this article or, you know, starting to work out, whatever it is. Now, you know, we're a number of months in, and we may still be in this position for a number of months more. So what I want to say is just try your best not to just be and maintain status quo, and really look at what you can do to thrive instead of just survive. You know, we're now in the last quarter of the year. There's still plenty of time to make something happen for yourself, whether that's business-wise or personal development. Plenty of time to network with people in virtual space or socially distanced. So just think about what you can do to advance your personal and professional development and your well-being, and not looking at, you know, putting everything off until the situation ends. And I think you'll be happier. So thank you guys. And, you know, if we have time, I'll be happy to take questions. And as I said, when we were talking at the beginning with Angela, you know, if there's questions that either you think of later, you're not comfortable asking me right now, you can reach out to me at jennifer@purposefulnetworking.com. That's my email. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have later, or maybe as you start to implement some of the tips, if you have questions about how it's going or how you can do it better, you know, feel free to reach out to me. And I'm also happy to take any questions right now. I see something in the comments here. I had a great experience using this question as an icebreaker in an interdepartment meeting. Looking back, what do you admire most about your childhood self? Yes, I love that. I'm so glad you said that, actually. I was on an event last night. Philadelphia has something called the Arts and Business Council, and usually their events are you know, a little bit pricey, but they're offering them all for free right now. So that's something, if you're looking for something to get involved in, the Arts and Business Council. They do this speaker series called Create Exchange, and they have different authors and different speakers. So actually last night's speaker was something really relevant to the conversation we're having now. It's a man, I think his name is Fred Dust, D-U-S-T, and he has a new book coming out called Designing Conversations. So it's all about, you know, how to foster relationships and conversations, which is very pertinent to what we're here discussing. But I bring this all up as he asked us an icebreaker question. We actually went into breakout rooms, and the question he gave us was, who were you at 12 years old? Which I think is very similar to the question that you put here in the chat box, Deborah. But it really made you stop and think, you know, what do you admire most about your childhood self. Who were you at 12 years old? That's something that really makes people step back from a business standpoint and just really connect with people on another level. And, going back to what I was talking about making that connection is really going to be what builds your network and makes the relationships meaningful. So I love that icebreaker. I love icebreakers in general. And I think the more you can think about asking people meaningful questions, the better your conversations will be. So yeah, thanks for that. Anything else?
I just want to say this was really nice to hear all of this. And I think your point about networking outside of your industry is very relevant, because I think in some ways our whole world has become so two-dimensional with this screen. And like, I socialize with my friends who live around me, but I'm not doing like the water cooler chats with my colleagues, or going to a networking event and you're standing waiting for your wine or your hors d'oeuvres and talking to some, so like all those things are gone. But I think thinking about doing something outside of the industry is a really good point. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. And I think also one thing I didn't mention is also think about, like, this is a women's group, which I love. I'm involved in so many women's organizations, but also something that's co-ed, something that's not only non-industry specific, but something that's, that's has men involved as well. Yeah. As you were talking and I'm looking at your background and I was looking at some of your other backgrounds, one thing I was thinking about when we were talking about the whole Zoom life, sometimes it's really fun to have those virtual backgrounds. And like, you were talking about getting together with local friends. Like, I remember one time early on in the spring, I did like a happy hour online with some of my girlfriends for one of the Real Housewives premieres on Bravo. Yes, that's a guilty pleasure. And I had a background that was all, Real Housewives and everything. And that's fun, if you're doing something themed or you just want to, do something more interesting. But I love that most of you just put your own background, because as far as icebreakers go, I think this is also something to think about. Picking up on something in someone's background and asking questions about it can also go a long way. The same way as if you were in somebody's office or workspace, there's something you could connect with that's on their desk, or ask about a picture or a diploma or a poster, a piece of art, whatever it is. So that's another reason, to have your camera on when you can, because it makes for a better connection. And also think about not having those virtual backgrounds all the time and letting people really see, what's behind you, what are your interests, what can they connect with. I think that can be really important in this virtual setting.
I was told that my shades were crooked, so that's of having your own background. And I haven't done a good job of like, I kind of work where there are better backgrounds in my house, and better setups for lighting, but it's like, this is where it works better for me. So I do it from here. So I haven't been good about like adjusting to the things that they say online we should do. But I did want to tell you, Vidhi, that you can, one of my friends that I Zoom with, she always hides her self view, because she says, I'm not looking at a mirror when I'm talking to you, usually at like a restaurant. So so that's a thing you can do. Then you might not know that your lines are crooked, and Roy
Right.
Diamond might point it out to you.
Do that. And believe me, there have been times where, like for example, if you go on Discover PHL, you can actually download virtual backgrounds of different landmarks and scenes in Philly. So I've downloaded a bunch of those, and sometimes I use those when I just don't feel like getting my background together. But I think just the being on camera, at the beginning, Angela said, if some of you don't want to be recorded, you can just turn your camera off. But to the extent that you can be on camera, it goes such a long way in building connection and relationships, just people to see your face. I actually love, like, you have this beautiful kind of, I don't know if it's a piece of art or what it is behind you with all the pinks and reds and purples. I think it's beautiful.
It's a little crooked though, Chris.
There's a mirror on the mirror, and Roy also pointed out that you could see the back of my head. And so my friend suggested that I put a pashmina over the mirror. So
is that what it is?
And then he commented on the blinds. So many people know Roy.
So funny. Well, look, at least you have something to comment on, right?
It always sounds so easy when we talk about, like, you made it all sound so easy, like, yo, send an email out and then boom, get somebody to like have a 15-minute chat. And I feel always like, oh my God, I'm all inspired and I'm ready to like go. I'm already on medium.com. Like, I'm going to do all of these things. And as soon as I get off the Zoom call, I'll turn off and I'll be like, all right, what's for dinner? And you're just
well, no, I'll be like that too. I'm already thinking, why didn't I already tell my husband to order Chinese food? Like, I'm thinking that as I'm talking to you. I get it. But I think that's where I talked about the consistency. If you just try to do, we talked about a lot of different things. Don't try to do them all. If you want to focus on the virtual, emails or virtual one-on-ones, see what I was talking about before, what works for your schedule. Just tell yourself, next week, I'm going to do one virtual one-on-one that I haven't done, or I'm going to do 2, or whatever works for you. And then just, if you stick to that, the way you would stick to anything else, getting up and brushing your teeth, or, working out on the treadmill, whatever it is, you'll start to incorporate it in your routine, which will be so helpful, because not only will it help you expand your network and keep in touch with people, but when we get out of this whole mess and we're all so busy running from place to place again, it will be less difficult, more difficult for you to give it up, because it'll already be ingrained as part of your routine. A lot of times, in our kind of normal life, people give up networking as one of the first things, because they say, oh, I'm so busy after this quarter, after this project, I know I need to network. I'll start going to events again, or I'll start networking with people again. But if you can take the time now to really incorporate into your schedule, it'll be something you don't even think about that'll be there, and you won't take it out of your schedule again.
I think I'm going to start with this group, and because we've all heard this, if they say no, it'll be a real, like, it won't be on me.
Yeah, that would be bad. You guys should all say yes.
Yeah, I love the relationship idea. I think for me, my thing was always, I'm never good at it. I'm still not good at it. I'm a partner and I still can't sell myself. I can't, I feel like it's so very awkward, but I think you're right. Just having relationships and just creating true connections has been, and you get something else out of it. Like, I like calling everybody on this, like, I can see when I need something, or you just build a better foundation. And I think that's kind of been the best part of the whole networking thing, that I just had to stop thinking about it. And I can't sell, and if stuff comes to me, it'll come. But for me, it's just been more fun to kind of build the relationships and just meet people, and just to find out all the different things that everybody else has going on and doing. And my hope is that at some point it all falls in place, and it has.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. I think stop worrying about pitching or selling yourself, or, gaining business. Not to say that that's not a reason we should all network. If you have something specific you're looking for, also don't forget to put it out to your network. As I said, if you're looking to hire an employee and you can't find somebody good, you have all these wonderful ladies, maybe they know somebody, so people can't read your mind. If you're looking for something specific, ask your network. But I agree with you, it doesn't have to be about pitching and elevator pitches and selling. The foundation's there, the relationships will build, and if there's opportunities to be had, they will come.
I don't want to monopolize this, but Karen, it's really interesting that you say that you're not a good networker, because in some ways, like, you're a partner in a really good accounting firm, and to like everyone else, you're like really successful, doing so well. But it's very interesting to see how we see ourselves sometimes, and like how others perceive us.
Yeah.
So
it's
that's
an
really
imposter syndrome thing. I'm learning. I'm trying. None of the partners that I made partner with as men think that way. They can tell you that they know everything. And I'm usually the one, I'm usually the one with a page of notes, like making sure that I like cross every T. But yeah, I mean, it's different, but yeah. I agree.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to keep monopolizing your time. I think your meeting was supposed to be till 5:30. I don't know if there's.
Yes, this has been a wonderful conversation, and if we can get a virtual or live round of applause for Jennifer, we're so grateful to have had you here today and to get all of these insights. And I will share all of Jennifer's contact information as she said if you want to follow up with her with any additional questions or coaching or networking advice, I'll make sure everyone has her contact information. And really with like the last minutes we really just wanted to hear more from you all, if there was anything as far as WHF-PA events that you guys would be interested in seeing during COVID. We did send the survey, and we may send a few more surveys just to gather member feedback, but feel free to share in the chat, or if you wanted to share out loud now, if you do have any ideas. We are really curious on types of things you would be interested in seeing. And for me particularly, I'm interested if people are doing any in-person events, if that was something that was kind of small groups coordinated by WHF-PA for, backyards or porches, or if that's something people are comfortable with or still not yet. So just really any ideas that you could spitball, we're curious to hear.
I just wanted to suggest that, I think most people know Holly's leaving at Thanksgiving. So I was thinking, for that happy hour in November, perhaps we could have her come and celebrate her. I don't know, just as an idea.
Great idea, Chris.
It really isn't my idea. It was Shoshana's idea, but I'll claim credit.
That's a really good idea.
Right? It feels like we should do, hopefully she would be able to come.
Yeah. Jennifer, do you mind sharing your Twitter handle? Because I was looking for it, and I think I followed some other Jennifer, and I think I have to unfollow her because it's not you, I'm pretty sure.
So it's RU Networked, AREYOU Networked, and that's my handle on Instagram and on Twitter, RU
Thank
Networked.
You. Got it. Angela, the one idea that I had just listening to Jennifer was that maybe we do some live videos for our website, or one-on-one interviews, but with a funny kind of questions, not really like industry questions. Maybe just a less than 5 minute, like a 3 minute, just a rapid fire round of quick questions, and we can all do it. We can have a revolving door of, Chris is enjoying this too much, so we have to start with her. Chris can interview you, and then, we can go around. Something like that, something more fun to do. We've done it on affordable housing. Questions. Say that again?
Like Vogue 70 questions.
That's what I was thinking of. Yeah. That's why I was laughing.
Well, maybe we do Vogue 7 questions on affordable housing or something. I love that. Oh my God.
I've only seen it 2 or 3 times, but I was thinking of it.
Yeah, I'm always amazed at organizations like yours. Sometimes people really don't know that much about people personally, even though they've been meeting with them for years and years. So I love that idea that you're talking about doing the, get to know you kind of fun questions, because, people are always surprised, oh my God, I've been with her for 5 years and I didn't know we both, went to Notre Dame or whatever it was. People just don't know about each other. So I love that idea.
Well, I'm going to go and write my blog. So check me out on medium.com.
Please, connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd love to, continue to hear from you guys and how you're progressing, and any networking that's working or not working for you, let me know.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Thank you, Jennifer.
We'll wrap up with that. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Angela.
Bye.